Happy Monday and welcome to The Weekly Noodle, the official podcast of Spaghetti Records. I'm your host, Ben.
And I'm Bill, and today we are in the studio with Melissa Bell, the owner of Sad Monkey Sound, which is really the coolest new recording studio in the San Francisco Bay area going right now. How's it going, Melissa?
It's going pretty good. I mean, considering it's the year 2020, things are going about as well as they can.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's in times like this, it's a good thing to do to just be here in the studio doing some audio recording, having a talk. Glad you're here.
Likewise.
So I should mention that in addition to being the owner, you are also the lead recording and mixing engineer. You work as a producer. You pretty much do it all, correct? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that that's the case. Definitely it's a studio that I built first and foremost for me and my projects. And I'm also really excited to do other people's projects there as well. And I like to have a hand in everything because for me, it's a creative outlet.
Awesome.
Totally.
Awesome. Well, so with that in mind, then, give us kind of the big picture. What is your vision for Sad Monkey Sound? What's it all about?
Sure. So Sad Monkey Sound is a small tracking, mixing, and production facility. It's a single room facility. It's actually built out in my garage, and it's still a functional garage. I don't generally park a car in there, but I am technically able to do so my HOA can't kick me out for it. It's very important. But, I think we're all in the same rough age group, pretty darn close. And
sure.
For me, the music that I grew up loving and the music that made the biggest impact on me, sound-wise and sort of experience-wise, was the music of the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. I listened to a tremendous amount of music from the 2000s on, but something about that, the old way of recording, right?
Sure.
The pre-DAW way of recording, analog tape and
right.
big heavy equipment and all of that stuff. The sound of that is a very particular thing, and that's what really resonates with me. And we're at a really interesting point in the sort of history of recording technology now, where the digital modeling stuff has finally gotten to the point where you can work that way, but without having to have a $250,000 recording console, right? That you have to take out a second and third mortgage on a home to purchase and all of this sort of stuff. So it is well and truly the era of the project studio. And so what I really wanted to build, both for myself and for others, was a room that offered you the workflow and the sound of a large format console, traditional recording studio that's sort of from a bygone era now, but marry that with a lot of the modern convenience, right? And the speed that comes with it, most importantly.
Sure.
I think when you are running, we can get into a little bit of history in a minute, but, I used to have a studio in Michigan, a setup where you and I had actually done some recording.
Right. I remember it well.
And, even that being a small 2-room studio, the business of having to get up and go back and forth between two spaces, the business of having way less sophisticated editing tools, there's just an upper bound on how fast you can move. And everything about what I've set up here is I want the big studio sound, but I want to be able to move incredibly quickly. I don't want there to be overdub day. I want to do drums, and then I want to overdub some guitars, and then I want to realize I need a new vocal, and I want to fly that in, and then I want to go back and do some more guitars, and then I want to, removing all those barriers for me was a really big thing.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. A lot of what you said definitely spoke to me. Like you said, we're kind of in the same age group here, and I can actually remember recording with tape. The first recording I ever did was in the 90s, working with tape. And the kind of digital age has definitely opened a lot of doors to people like us, making it possible. When I was younger, it was kind of a dream to have my own studio where I could just record anytime.
Yep.
And it seemed like further from reality than it ended up being, just given, the marvels of modern technology or however you want to put it. But there is something that gets lost a lot of times when you have an ear for the old authentic kind of analog sound, like to some extent we probably all three of us do. So I definitely hear where you're coming from with all of that. Do you want to get into any specifics regarding gear, brands, pieces that you have that you feel like facilitate that, kind of allow you to? Because I noticed that quote on your website. The website is sadmonkeysound.com for everyone out there listening. I noticed that quote, modern workflow, classic sound.
Yep.
Can you speak to the gear at all, any that you feel enables that?
Sure. So, I have, how do I want to describe this? I have a really distinctly hybrid approach to how I think about recording and mixing. You'll hear the word hybrid a lot, and it means slightly different things to different people. But fundamentally, the thing that's always true is that it's a marriage of this, modern digital workflow, right? It's certainly built around a DAW. I use Studio One Professional, although I work in pretty much everything. I keep Pro Tools on hand and Logic and Cubase and all of these things, because if people have stuff that they want me to work with, then I have it and I can open their sessions and do what I need to do.
Sure.
But in addition to the DAW, I like to bring in pieces that let me get some of that old analog sound, but also some of that analog workflow. So if you want to talk about gear, we have to start with my audio interface. For anybody who's listening to this later who doesn't know what an audio interface is and what that does in the studio, right? It's the gateway to bringing high quality audio in and out of your computer. That's the most fundamental thing that it does, right? Sometimes it'll have microphone preamps attached to it. Sometimes it won't. But it's high-end analog to digital converters, and then on the back end, digital to analog converters that we use to listen. And it can have a big impact on your sound. In particular, I have invested very heavily in the Apollo platform, which is from Universal Audio. Universal Audio is a manufacturer of high-end professional audio equipment. Their history goes back many, many, many decades. A lot of the early Beach Boys albums and Pet Sounds were recorded on Universal Audio consoles. They're 610 consoles. If you're familiar with the 1176 compressor or the LA2A compressor, they are sort of the originators of a lot of that stuff and continue to manufacture the accurate versions today. So they're a company with a long history of making high-end professional products. And what they've done with the Apollo platform is something that there are a few other people trying to do it now, but they're really way ahead of the game. They have a DSP-based platform, so their hardware actually runs plugins in real time. So rather than running them on your computer CPU, that actually runs on their hardware. That allows them to do some things like monitoring through plugins with latency latency that is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to achieve on other platforms. And they have also gone forward with this technology that they're calling Unison. And this is what really attracted me to their platform. So you take their DSP power. They have some really nice onboard preamps. As far as built-in preamps go, they're actually quite nice. But they have married those two together. So they have a piece of technology called Unison that allows you to load a preamp plugin, basically, into a channel on their interface. So if you want, for example, a Neve 1073, this is a classic Neve, 60s and 70s console preamp, the kind used to record, thousands of albums that you've loved the sound of over the decades. You can load that in there. And it even goes so far as to match the input impedance on the microphone jack, to align it with the original hardware, because that can affect the tone that you get from a given microphone going into that, the old school sound, but the modern workflow, right? It's this kind of technology that I believe really strongly in. It's about making artistic choices. What do I want this to sound like? What do I want to capture this through? And rather than doing the modern workflow thing where we kind of leave it all to the mix, right? What I want to do is I want to record things as straight as possible, no EQ, record them at a very moderate level, right? Because I'm going to figure it out later. That's the way a lot of records get made now, is you record things neutral, not badly, but neutral. You record them neutral so that you have maximum flexibility later. And aside from the sound quality and the way this gear sounds, I think the biggest thing that we've lost in the move to this modern way of recording is this idea of creating something. When you're recording a band and when you're building something up, it used to be that if you listen to the master tapes from I've heard the master tapes of Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden.
Okay.
And if you were to load up the master tapes to Black Hole Sun by Soundgarden and you put all the faders up at 0, it's flat, right? Does it sound exactly like the version you heard on the album? No. But that song is there, right? And the tones are there. They weren't created after the fact. They were built in. They were baked in. And that's a lot of what I'm trying to do. I think that when you have too much flexibility at any point in the creative process, it's easy to just go, meh.
Right.
And just kind of get bogged down in this, this choice paralysis thing. And so I'm a big believer in, now I'm going to record this. I'm going to get a drum sound that I like and I'm going to record it and that's going to be my drum sound. And I'm going to sweeten it and I'm going to, enhance it and juice it up a little bit later. But the drum sound needs to be there. I don't want to, be listening to something for the rest of tracking that doesn't sound like the drum sound or the vocal sound or the guitar sound.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because what I'm hearing is even stylistically and aesthetically, it ties in with that same kind of vision, classic sound, modern workflow, not only gear, but kind of the idea behind getting the good sound at the source. It sounds like even the way you like to work has some classic elements.
Yeah, I think that, nothing is better or worse here. I don't want to say that the way that a lot of records are being made now is bad, because there are a lot of records being made that way that I love the sound of, that I think are absolutely incredible. But the sound that I like and the way that I like to work is this, I want to be moving forward. I don't want to be going backwards. I want to be building up to something and not just kind of like collecting things. So for me, it works really well. And that's how I like to work.
Awesome. Yeah. At this point, why don't we let the listeners hear an example of what a finished product sounds like? With all of that in mind, with the gear, the philosophy behind it, all of that working together to create a song. So this is a song that was recorded in Detroit, but mixed at Sad Monkey Sound, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So you mix it there. And this is from the soon-to-be-released debut EP, First Wave, by Spaghetti Records recording artist The Dwellers, the song Gnarly Marley. Enjoy. Very cool. And I can hear that, what you talked about. I can hear just the tonal properties in that, that they don't sound strained at all. I can tell what I'm hearing is natural, that you did a good job just to kind of bringing the life of that song, that was there in it, bringing it out and making it full. And I remember being a part of the process that it came together rather quickly as well. You turned it around pretty quick.
Yeah, I feel like, thinking about songs I've written in the past, the best ones are the ones that congeal quickly. And, otherwise, if I string out a song too long, it starts to change identity and lose that sort of sound it started out with, the impetus for it and the energy around it. So I really appreciate what you're saying, because that's, I think the best space to work in for me personally,
I think you always get, yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, just go ahead. Yeah, I want to hear what you had to...
No, I was just going to say, I think, I don't know about you, but for me, there's this point, and it's incredibly hard to recognize, especially when you're working on your own stuff, right? It's a lot easier to recognize, actually, when you're working on somebody else's stuff. But there comes a point in every creative endeavor where you start to have to ask yourself, am I making this better, or am I just making it different? And one of the things I like about making choices early on is that if you deprive yourself of that infinite flexibility as you're going forward, it gets harder and harder and harder to do the things that are just different, right? The effort starts to go up. And so you really start out like, does that make it better? I just added another guitar part. Is it actually better? No, it's actually not. It's it's not the right thing. So...
Yeah.
Melissa, do you also offer your services as a studio musician, as a musician for hire at Sad Monkey Sound?
I certainly am open to doing that. What I will tell you is that when it comes to playing drums on other people's records, I would much rather recommend some people that I know who I think are really excellent studio drummers. Okay. Largely because, I am a multi-instrumentalist, and I'm very happy about that, and I'm very proud about it, because it lets me work very quickly, and I can do a lot of things and figure out a lot of stuff. But when it comes to really, if I'm going to sell somebody a drum track, I would vastly prefer to send them to somebody who I know can deliver exactly what they want, no matter what they want. And that's really and truly not me. Now, that said, if you want a pretty ripping rhythm guitar track, I'm more than happy to put that down for you. But I'll do anything people want. But at the end of the day, I think drums, man, good drummers are worth their weight in gold. And I'm a decent drummer. So I'm worth my weight in like bronze or something, so it depends on what you want.
Well, I think you're being modest, but that's very cool. But anyway, so Sad Monkey Sound, it's a new recording studio in the San Francisco Bay Area. I think it's one of the coolest studios going right now. And Melissa Bell is the owner, producer, engineer, both mixing and recording, and occasionally it sounds potentially studio musician for hire as well. So she really does it all. Check out the website. It is sadmonkeysound.com. Melissa, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
And thank you all out there for listening and tuning in to The Weekly Noodle, the official podcast of Spaghetti Records. Be sure to tune in next Monday for more behind-the-scenes action. Until then, I'm Bill.
And I'm Ben. And remember, keep it saucy, Noodleheads.
The Weekly Noodle is the official podcast of Spaghetti Records. All audio materials herein are hereby property of Spaghetti Records and relevant subsidiary parties. Trademark, copyright, secret recipe. Unauthorized duplication of authorized noodles is uncouth, rude, and generally frowned upon. The Weekly Noodle is made possible through listeners like you.